truthfully, you know how you people always say, I have no regrets. I regret a lot of stuff. I regret, I regret that I wish somebody would have shook me and said, don't be so naive. Not everybody's going to be your friend, and I'm like a friendly guy. I want everybody to be nice and have a good time and like everybody, right? But if you're too naive, man, they just know how to walk all over you, and I just let it happen because I was only interested in one thing, the song. The song, the song. If it's a hit song, great. If it's not a hit song, it's got to be a great song, period. That's it, period.
And just like that, we have delivered the first 2 reaction episodes featuring the Rock and Roll Hall of Famer, Neil Giraldo. But my friends, that is a mere tease, an appetizer, the first and second course. But I'm just going to go ahead and cut, the Michelin metaphors. It's time to go ahead and serve you guys up the main course. This is the first half of my discussion and interview with Neil Giraldo, featuring our music aficionado, Tim Sommer. A really in-depth conversation, informative, fun, so I hope you guys enjoy this. Anyways, if you're here for it, like, share, comment, subscribe, and you know what it is. Roll the tape!
Pegasus, what an honor to be here. And you're too young to remember these things. You're too young for to remember when the Beastie Boys emerged. You're too young to remember when Hootie and the Blowfish came around.
Actually, Hootie is kind of there for me. So,
okay.
I remember hearing stuff. I've done some reactions to Hootie, but that's what I was like, when I heard that, I was like, yo, that's crazy, because that got radio play, and that was like my era. I think I was in my 20s when that dropped. So epic, man. We're not worthy. Thank you for being here, Tim. All right, now for the main attraction. We have the one and only Neil Giraldo. And this is crazy. He's a Rock and Roll Hall of Famer, producer, creator, guitarist, for some huge iconic hits, working with Pat Benatar, like hand in hand. Like, the accolades are crazy. I think like over 30 million records sold, something very remarkable. I'd like to introduce Neil to the show. What's up, Neil? How you doing?
Hey, I'm great. How you doing? Thanks for having me.
Good, man. Thank you for being here. This is legendary for me. This is really big, and this is interesting because where I come from, my background is rap and hip hop, and I'm learning so much through reactions about musicianship and stuff like that. So I am truly honored for you guys to be here. Welcome to the platform, and I'm gonna let Tim kind of take the lead, and let's just have a good conversation. It's gonna be awesome.
That is so kind of you, Pegasus. You have viewers, Pegasus. You have viewers all over the country. People watch your channel all over the country. So if Neil doesn't mind, and if Pegasus doesn't mind, I want to begin this a little locally. And this is how I want to begin. Neil, a couple of years ago for the Washington Post, I wrote a story where I said that if you really wanted to find the roots of indie rock in America, if you really wanted to find the roots of the punk rock revolution, you had to look at Ohio in the 1970s. I mean, you had Perubu, Rocket from the Tombs, yep. The Numbers Band, which was Chrissie Hynde's brother, Tin Huey, who I loved, Devo, and before that, the godfather of punk rock, Joe Walsh. What was in the water in Ohio, and how did that impact and affect you?
Well, first of all, the use of expert, if it's hanging on me, I'm no expert. I'm going to say, Tim, you could be an expert, not me. I'm not an expert. I'm just a musician. That's all I am. Simple as that. So back to the water. How about the Cuyahoga River and the dark mud that hangs in the Cuyahoga, the Rust Belt prophets of musicians that hang in that city of Cleveland. Perubu, number one. It's breaking my heart.
Yeah.
David Thomas, when he passed away just recently.
Very recently.
It hit me, yeah. Brilliant. And a brilliant band, a musicianship. So partially, I have to say that I think because of the blue collar and the steel mills and the weather, I think it all comes together where you're in the house and you're gray. The sky is gray most of the days. And you find refuge in living subterranean. I grew up in my basement. I was in my basement. That's where my bedroom was. I was happy to be down there. So I think it's just there's a lot of intent, like a hard work and intent to make music and be expressive and say what you feel and say what you mean, you know?
I think that working class, I'm use working class, I don't loosely, but I think it also sort of says something about the roots of the music, the classic music that you and Pat made together. And I'm going to start by saying that although you and Pat Benatar are deeply, deeply linked to the MTV era, you had 3 successful albums out before MTV even went on the air. In many ways, I look at the work that you were doing with Pat Benatar, especially those first 3 albums. It's almost as if you were the last great classic rock band. That's the era that you guys came from. You came from the classic rock era. But then MTV comes around, and you guys get so associated with MTV. From your own perspective, especially being the second, and a lot of people don't know this,
Right.
you guys were the second act ever played on MTV.
Correct.
And to have been a band coming from what you came from, as I said, truly a classic rock art act, to have seen MTV change everything from your perspective, from a first-hand in the trenches perspective, what was that like?
Okay, so yeah. So here's an example. So you read a book, and when you read that book, you got all the imagery of all these great characters in that book that you read. Then all of a sudden the film comes out, and you're going to give a review to the film after you just read this book and you saw your own characters and you saw your own story unfold, and you're part of that whatever scene you're in. If you're in a dark noir kind of story, there you are. But now all of a sudden, somebody gets a hold of that, changes the perspective of what you're hearing, because a lot of people listen with their eyes,
Yeah.
right? They don't listen with their ears, they listen with their eyes. So to me personally, I wasn't a fan of MTV because it to me, it distorted what the song was supposed to be personalized to that individual that listened to it. Now, I'm not saying that it wasn't a great medium for people to understand what music was. I get all that stuff. But for me personally, it wasn't my favorite thing. And the other part was when you're doing it for like 8 hours and you got this great haircut and you feel real good and you're looking really good. 8 hours later, haircut's gone, you're a mess, you look like hell, and that's the take they use. So, I mean, if you want to look good, it ain't going to happen, right? So
It's interesting with what you just said, because I'm in the reaction space. You're absolutely right. The visual paints the interpretation. So there's a 50-50 for me. Sometimes people focus on the visual art as much as the musical art to coincide and really give you this full package. But the reason music reactions are blowing up is because people sit down and listen to the audio and they have their own interpretation and epiphanies, and people are like, I never thought of it that way, or
Right.
me too. And so that's really interesting that you pinpoint that so early in this conversation. I just want to say that's awesome.
Well, it's really it's an honest feeling that I had from day one with it. I wasn't very happy about that, and again, it's like this. You do listen with your eyes. I get all that, but imagine this. This is really important because it's a real simple fact. How many songs that you have heard in the moment you were in, whether it's heartbreaking or happy, that stays with you your whole life? Every time you hear that song, you go, oh my God, I remember the day, put a fill in the blank. That's power. That's the power of music. It kind of you get stuck inside your head. You can't get it out. But when there's a visual attached, it takes you to a different direction.
Wow.
Likewise, it seems to me that MTV, and this was a good marketing plan, MTV was in many ways, and I say this as someone who worked in the MTV. I worked at MTV on and off between 1983 and 1991. MTV was very much in the heroes and villains business. And I'll tell you what I mean by that. I look at the music you were making with Pat. There's really not that much difference between, say, what Chrissy Hind was doing.
Gonna use my arms, gonna use my legs, gonna use my style.
What Blondie was doing.
Well, drive past your house, and if the lights are all down, I'll see who's around.
You even worked with Mike Chapman, who was one of the people who developed Blondie.
Correct.
Yet you were cast as being these superstars, and they were cast as being these cool rock and roll people. And I think one of the things about MTV is it caused those boundaries where there shouldn't have been those boundaries. I mean, I mentioned Joe Walsh earlier. Joe Walsh is a guy, because he emerged in the era before MTV. He was everything. He was a punk rocker, and he was a mainstream guy, and he was a singer-songwriter. Once MTV came along, here you are being boxed. And the more I learn about your history and the music you've made, not just with Pat, but with other people, I realize you're someone who never should have been in a damn box.
Oh, well, thank you. I mean, I never felt like I was trapped in that box. I think a lot of times I was misunderstood because people don't really know who I am or what I am. You know, many times I wake up, I don't even know who I am or what I am, right? I mean, it happens to everybody. You wake up one day and you go, what the hell am I doing? But then back to MTV, John Sykes, who's part of MTV, a major part of it, he told me a story the other day during the Rock Hall, when we did the Rock Hall event. And he says, do you remember when I drove you and Rick Derringer around? Because I was in Rick's band, and Rick and I would go to radio stations. He worked for CBS. He goes, you remember when we drove around in my station wagon? I had to drive you to radio stations. I said, yeah, John, it was a long time ago, right? So, but here's the thing now. This is important for Pegasus, Black Pegasus. Here we go. And your age, here we go. Here's the age, man. So Silicon Valley, the tech industry, what a great thing that MTV did, because what it did was invent that. And this is how they did it. We're going to give you 24 hours of free, no advertisement of music, over for 24 hours. Free. It addicts people. They get in there. They have an addiction. We love it. We love it. We love it. Then all of a sudden, you're not getting it free anymore. Here comes the commercials. But you're already addicted. It's got you. It's like software. It's how software started. We're going to give it to you free. But if you want to take it a step further, it's going to cost you $2.99. Then it's $5.99. You see? So that, in a lot of ways, MTV was that pattern for the tech industry, I feel, on a business platform.
Now, Robert wouldn't remember this because he came of age at a time that MTV was not playing wall-to-wall videos. But Robert, when we were in our 20s, I was in my 20s at the time, in my teens and in my 20s, and when you would watch TV, you'd watch, and if you were watching a show, as soon as a commercial hit, you'd flip over to MTV to see what was on MTV. Like Neil said, MTV was this constant addiction. It got you hooked. You were like, I'm going back there, I'm going back there, I'm going back there, I'm going back there. You turn on to MTV, you wouldn't sit and watch it for 90 minutes at a time, but you watch it 90 different times in the day. And a lot of the times when you watch it, there'd be a Pat Benatar video on.
Yeah. So this is where it gets kind of crazy for me hearing this conversation, because my father was stationed in Germany, and when we got back from Germany, like, I learned so much because I didn't have access to MTV in Germany, you know? So like, I started seeing things and I learned so much. And you're right. So that when I was starting to watch it, there were commercials in shows. Like, they started introducing stuff, and BET started becoming like a big thing, like, you know, like The Rival. But it was the birth of reality TV,
exactly,
which took that away. Right. And like, I was right on that cusp, like, oh my God, I love Yo MTV Raps. And then all of a sudden it's just gone. And it taught me, like, this conversation is so fresh for me because that's what shaped me to be here, because I became a literally, I became a rapper from watching MTV. Like, the West Coast gangster rap stuff is really influenced me. And then it was just gone. But yes, absolutely, it's hitting on the nose, because I didn't miss that because I totally get what you guys are saying.
Here's an idea. Wild. Here's an idea too. Think about this for the rap and hip hop world. Grandmaster Flash. Okay.
Repossessed my car. Don't push me, cause I'm close to the edge. I'm trying not to lose my head.
Grandmaster Flash was saying some real stuff when they came out right away, right in the very beginning. If they would have done a video in the very beginning, it would not have the impact that their words and the power that they were trying to say back then.
Mm.
You
I could see that.
a director would have got involved with them. It would have maybe not. You know, it's hard to say, but
Yeah.
that was the beginning. You know, so it's all in time. It all comes in time when it's
To that point, I think before we go to the video, I want to say to that point, music, and you said this at the beginning of our conversation, Neil. Music creates memories. Music is a mnemonic. It is something we associate with the moments of our life. MTV videos created a lifestyle, created a fashion. And,
Fashion.
and Neil is absolutely right. Can you imagine if at the birth of rap, if we had immediately had those things nailed to images, it'd be entirely different story. Now,
Absolutely right.
now, Robert, I understand we're going to go to a video now. Is that correct?
I was actually going to ask Neil one thing about this. On the flip side, do you think that visual entertainment could also make a song more powerful? Do you think it strips it totally of that interpretation, or can it increase the sensory of that? Because, you know, for example, like when Eminem put out Stan.
A couple weeks ago that made me sick. Some dude was drunk and drove his car over a bridge. And in the car they found a tape, but they didn't say who it was to. Come to think about it, his name was you. Damn.
I was just like, the way he put the story, you knew the story because he told the full story, but then when they put the visual to it, I thought something like that could potentially be a little more powerful. But I was wondering what you think of that because of your initial, you know, coming in hot and blazing. Yeah, man, take me out, man.
Right. Okay, here's the answer. It's a simple one, too, and it's very clear. That you make a great point. In today's world and Eminem's world, or when that started to change, you got to look at where the videos and MTV when they first started. When you look at that from now, when you look at it now, it's totally different than what they can do today, right? Back then. So I'll give you an example. We did a song called Somebody's Baby. And Somebody's Baby was a song that was written, it was about the homeless. And it was a very powerful song. So a young video director heard the song. It says, "Can I do a video for you guys?" And I says, "Absolutely," because I love what he was doing. That song, that video, has serious impact. The people that were in it were all homeless people, and they would hold up signs, different signs, you know, like the Bob Dylan video, you know, holding up signs, and it gets to the end, and it breaks your heart. So you can connect with that. The reason I'm saying it didn't quite connect with me back then because it was so new and it was so diluted. It didn't work for me. It didn't deliver that message.
I get it. And when you go back, some stuff is a little cheesy, and you're like, oh, like, you know,
Think a little.
This definitely took from the music.
Oh man.
All right, got you. I did a reaction to Love is a Battlefield, and this is really insane because I never expected to be in this situation, so I don't know what part they decided to clip up. I try to have fun with my reaction, so a little disclaimer. But after this, you guys, hey, make sure you like, share, and comment, and subscribe to the channel. You like the video. But right after this, we're going to do a real-time reaction to Hell is for Children, and that's going to be epic. But right now, we're going to watch a clip of a reaction I did to Love is a Battlefield, and then we're going to get right into that next segment.
She going back home? Bro. Okay, I love that ad-lib melody that while she's singing, like it's so fire. Anyways, that's just a good ass track. That is insane. it's insane that I had not heard this version of it. Like, because the one I heard, it has like another female singing the hook, but it coincides with the concept that they were pushing on that mixtape. But, bruh, Pat Benatar snapped. This is crazy. And you know what's interesting is with the lyrics of the song, you know, saying we are young. When you're young and you first fall in love, it's different. It's different as you get older, right? And it's almost like when you're young, you're just like, you don't listen to those who came before you, right? You're like, no, you're wrong. You don't understand. You don't feel it the way I feel it.
All right, there's a little clip from the archives. It's really interesting because I had heard, you know how you hear things in passing, but I got familiar with the melody of that song from a rap mixtape. Someone like did a remix, and I forgot the concept. It was like a conscious type of rap song, and I was just like, so going back to like, and that's what my channel's theme is right now. Is like I'm trying to go back to the classics because now I'm seeing like a lot of these producers and stuff were actually in the rap world were inspired by you or the Beatles or whoever it may be, whether it be by default, inadvertently, or whatever, because I'm hearing it sonically in the sounds and the melodies. And so like I've, the last year or two, and even today, you guys mentioned all those names, but the one I knew was Joe Walsh. I was like, oh, James Gang, Joe Walsh, okay, I did not know that about him. I'm just getting to know a lot of this stuff. So I appreciate you guys being here. And anyways, I don't know if you guys are supposed to react to that, but I'm sorry. That's just.
Oh, that's great.
I do want to say something. I want to say that you mentioned somebody a few minutes ago who we just lost. We just lost the great, great Rick Derringer. Now, unfortunately, and I don't mean this in any remotely facetious way, Robert or Neil, his passing of Rick Derringer has been overshadowed by the passing of Sly Stone and one of the true greats to have ever been in the business, Brian Wilson.
No
but I don't want to forget who Rick Derringer was.
Rock and roll, hoochie coo.
Both as an artist, and Neil, if you could speak a little about him as an artist and especially his role in your career, which was tremendous.
Yeah. Thank you for mentioning him. So, and then we'll get back to Love is a Battlefield because you could do a whole segment on that song and everything about it. So, I'll try to put in the highlights and answer that. But for Rick Derringer, so it's very powerful. I get really choked up. It's hard for me to say this because I talk about 5 people in your life that make the most important, I guess I could say that, the most important people in your life, right? 5. He's one of the 5. And this is the reason why. Because I was playing in a band in Cleveland, Ohio, and I was 21 years old, and I really felt like I wasn't getting anywhere. I mean, all the bands I was always in Cleveland were original bands. We would do original material and material from other people that not a lot of people heard. Because I wanted to have original songs. I didn't want to do everybody else's material. My whole life was based around, even when I was 7 years old, I wanted to walk down Lonely Street, Elvis Presley down Heartbreak Hotel. That's what my life was. I was in that song, walking down the street. At 7 years old, I heard that. So for Rick, what Rick did, I went from playing in front of 50 people to audition for Rick Derringer's band. He auditioned over 200 guitar players. That's insane. I can't even imagine auditioning 10. Who would want to, over 200? He's out of his mind. This is insane. But he chose me. And the day he chose me, my whole life changed. Because I went from playing in front of 50 people a night to thousands. And watching him and listening to him, he wasn't teaching. He wasn't a guy that was going to teach you stuff by telling you. It was by actions. And I watched him and listened. And when we went in to make the record, Guitars and Women, I played more piano than guitar because I love piano. I played a ton of it. I love it so much. And I remember when he said, when we went in to do the record, he says, oh, I'm going to get a piano player to play on the record. I said, no, you're not. He goes, why? He goes, I'll play it. I'm going to play it. He goes, Oh yeah, okay. And it's just little things that he did. I watched him in the studio. Todd Rundgren produced a record. I watched both of them and I listened. But the thing is, if he wasn't in my life, I would never be where I am today. It's impossible. I wouldn't have been ready. I was writing songs. Was writing a lot of songs. They weren't that good. They weren't good at all. I meet Patricia. We put the band together. The first song I write for her is "We Live for Love," and it was the second single off the record. But the universe, and I don't get into the metaphysical thing because there's a lot to it. But the universe had this path that I needed to take, and Rick was instrumental with that path. And he said this really great thing too. Is on one of these cruises, those rock cruises, which I only did one because I'm not a big boat fan, especially those cruises, right? So he came up to me, he goes, "I've always wanted to tell you this." I go, "What is it, Rick?" He says, "Well," he said, speaking Rick's talking, he says, "When I was 22 years old, I joined the Johnny Winter Band. When you joined my band, you were 22 years old, the same." And I went, wow, that was kind of cool. And I saw where his trajectory went after doing the Johnny Winter thing. And I look at where I went doing the stuff that I did. But again, without him, nothing would have happened. I wasn't ready. I would have never been ready if I didn't have been with him for that year and a half.
Real quick, fellas, did Rick play a part in the song "Real American"?
Yes.
He wrote it, or he's a part?
He wrote it. He got into this heavy political thing, which I don't do, and he got into that pretty deep. And I didn't. At times he was getting. There was a lot of headbutting with a lot of people, and I didn't. I felt bad for him. I said, "Rick, but it was."
I grew up in the era of WWF, so like that, like when we mentioned talking about Rick, I was like, bro, like I've seen that, and I thought it was connected with that, and so that's how it's like. I loved Hulk Hogan, just the whole So that was a thing when I was younger, of course.
Oh yeah. He got deep. He got deep into that. No, that's cool. That's totally cool, man. I used to watch. Because we're a lot older, we watch wrestling, but the guys we watch they didn't look anything like the modern wrestlers, man. They were overweight,
Yeah. That was an era, just the old Hulk Hogan, the Mike Tyson, the Jordan stuff. That's kind of the era that I just fell in love with. So that's
I'm Fred Blassie, and So.
Yeah, what was that guy? There was one guy I loved, man. He was great. I can't remember his name now. Some of the wrestlers, but I loved all that stuff as a kid. But
if the people who watch this, or the people who listen to you, Robert, who watch your channel, I think the more they learn about Neil, the more they'll realize he was ahead of his time, with his time, in front of his time. And I'll tell you something fascinating about Pat and Neil is that America, 45 years late, has recently discovered the genius of a singer-songwriter named Kate Bush, who finally, after a 45-year career in England, had some hits in the United States very recently because of a television show. Correct. Pat Neil recorded a Kate Bush song in 1980. You had to have been one of the first people, especially first Americans, ever to cover Kate Bush.
Yeah, I mean, I love Kate Bush. I was listening to her back then, and I didn't hear Wuthering Heights until I was in a little cafe in France in 1980, early part of 1980, and I heard it over the speakers. And I was having lunch with Patricia, and I looked at her and I says, "That's a great song." We should cover that song with your voice and what we could do it. I think you should do that. I think it'd be a great song. So that was the reason we did it. The impetus of why we did it was hearing it then. But yeah, Kate was just, I loved her stuff. Odd meter. She always had odd meters, changes in her music. And Yeah, I loved her. You know, running up the hill. Come on, I mean, it's great stuff. Just the feel, her feel was always interesting to me.
How did you guys balance on your albums your own material versus outside material? Because there's a big mix on your record.
Right.
I want to say it's around 50-50, maybe a little more leaning towards outside writers. But how did you create that balance? How did you decide, okay, we're willing to put aside our egos and go with other writers?
Right, it started. It was balanced like that, and then eventually it started going obviously the other way. Two reasons were a cause of that. One was that we were, the record deal was, you had to make a record every 9 months or you go into suspension. It was a terrible record deal. After the first record did really well, after the second record did amazingly well, instead of the management going in and really saying, okay, here it is, no more suspension, give them 2 years to make a record so they can write the material and do what you need to do, right? That never happened. So a record every year. So a lot of times we were on tour and never had the time to sit in the studio and just try to put new material together. That's number one reason. Number two is if there was an outside song that came to me, and if I thought it was a good song that could be a great song, I tore it to pieces. So I would never, if somebody wanted to submit a song, they could send it to me, but I would just want a piano and vocal or guitar and vocal. Don't give me anything else, but then they would, and I'd say, I'm going to tear it to pieces. And that's because I wouldn't do it unless I made it so it sounded, so the singer and the act makes it their own. That's very important.
Now, Robert, as an artist yourself and a producer yourself, you must be able to identify with that, with being able to make something your own.
Absolutely. You know, there's an intimate relationship. So my relationship with music is obviously going to be a little different because I'm not per se a musician. I sit with the producer and either they produce it there or they're letting me hear tracks. But, you know, that being the canvas and trying to write something and express yourself in a certain way, you know, it's very intimate. You know, I know it can be manufactured, but for someone like me, it's always pretty intimate. You know, it's a piece of you going into the sphere. So absolutely.
Yeah.
Now,
See,
sorry.
Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead, Tim.
Oh, no, I was just going to say, I was so excited to talk about you and Kate Bush that I distracted us from talking about Love is a Battlefield.
Oh, yeah, we'll get back to that. But no, I'm glad you mentioned the writing thing, because here's the thing, too. Management's really important. We had one manager, Danny Goldberg, who was my favorite manager. Danny was phenomenal. What a phenomenal guy. Just powerful, straight ahead, firm, assertive, and protective of the artist. He never would say, they don't want to do it. They don't want to do it. He always say, we don't want to do it, or yes, we will do it, including him as the we, right? Very important. That was important. So since the management was weak, we would rewrite songs that were given to us. Melodies, lyrics, and we never got credited for writing with them because the management never went ahead. Many of those songs, and I won't tell you what they are, but there was many of those. And we were moving at such a fast pace.
You didn't even try to do arrangement copyrights or anything like that.
Oh, my God. Arrangement copyrights, I'd have 111% of every single thing. Are you kidding? Man, not even close. Honest, I'm sorry I have to say that sounds narcissistic. I hate being that way, but damn it, that's the truth. And
it's true. It's true.
It's true. And, you know, and it was just weak. The management was weak and never pushed. And truthfully, you know how people always say, you know, I have no regrets. I regret a lot of stuff. I mean, I regret that I wish somebody would have shook me and said, don't be so naive. Not everybody's going to be your friend, you know, and I'm like a friendly guy. I want everybody to be nice and have a good time and like everybody, right? But if you're too naive, man, they just know how to walk all over you, you know. And I just let it happen because I was only interested in one thing, the song. The song. If it's a hit song, great. If it's not a hit song, it's got to be a great song, period. That's it, period. So.
Well, that's what makes you great, man, because I've been seeing that. Like, I'm in and out of different industries, and there's just something about the people who really prioritize that, the creation, you know, because there's so many people that just get caught up in the manufacturing of this thing instead of the. So it's refreshing to hear.
Yeah, it's it's sad that people do take advantage of you. I always say that when people ask me, what can you do? I'm a new artist. What can you tell me to help me? And I says, never let somebody live rent free in your head. Don't let somebody live in there. You know, be yourself, be brave, be fearless. You know, just go at it. And
Absolutely.
don't look back. So we'll go to Love is a Battlefield because I'll go with your comments when you were talking after your reaction to that. Those voices in there are Patricia, and there was no one else singing. And maybe you might have heard something of somebody else's, like a cover of that or whatever. But the version, our version, it's all those things. You know, what you're saying, da 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 da.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's all Patricia.
That's awesome.
That's her singing that. So that's a very complex song. But here, part of the creative process for me is I have an ability. I don't have a lot of abilities, but this one gets in the way of something. Is I can hear something completely done. If I write a song, once it's all done, I can hear it completely done as a landscape. People, I know successful producers and arrangers and all those people that do colors, talk in colors. You know, I want it a little more blue, I want it more red, green, yellow, all that. I've never done that. I do it like a landscape, okay? So if you have a bare landscape, just sand, right, or land, right? But then I hear things as objects. So let's take Love is a Battlefield. You know, we got this drum beat that was programmed. I'll get to that in a second. But it's a random rhythm, and I love rhythm, and I got this crazy rhythm bouncing all over the place. So I get that. I know what's driving that track. There it is. I got that rhythm going like this. So then I have this keyboard that's just sort of ethereal and sometimes jabbing. Boom, boom, jabbing. I don't want the guitar doing it because it'd be too heavy. I want that doing boom, boom, boom. And the speed is so quick and moving so fast, and the bass is driving that. So I see the bass in the middle underneath that, like right at the footings of the house, right? So you got all these little places, and they're all over all these little objects. Background vocals are going this way. The vocals like walking at you. So this is what I see, but I hear that and I see it all, right? So I get in the studio and I just say, okay, here we go. And everything's based, since you're in the hip hop rap world, rhythm based. Everything is rhythm based. The reason Battlefield is so powerful to so many people is that rhythm rolls. And it never stops, and it disguises itself as an R&B, slightly R&B song, but it's driving like a rock song, hard. Like nobody's screwing around here. You're going right at it, and it starts right in the beginning. So, back to rhythm. Every song that I do is based on rhythm. Songs like We Belong, Love is a Battlefield, they all have intricate rhythm places, rhythms. Because I drive the track through those rhythms, right? So the Lindrum was a 8-bar phrase that I got it, and the first day I had it, I'm programming this thing, and I wanted it to be like Bo Diddley, but faster. I wanted the talking in the beginning like Diana Ross and the Supremes.
Baby, all right from the start.
I was just having fun. Let's have some fun with it. You know, let's do some crazy stuff, right? Let's make those really aggressive vocal backgrounds. Make them really hit out at us. You know, grab people, right? I don't know.
There's so to add to everything you said, there's also something about the emotion in the vocals that evokes something to me that literally I'm tractor beamed back to being 19 or 20. You know, like, I don't know, there's just something about, like, there's a lot of magic in that song, everything you named, but I just always wanted to highlight that there is something like, I don't know, there's just something emotional in the vocal too. The way just, we are young. I obviously can't sing. I want to, like, I wish I was in my shower so I could do it, but you know, like, I'm just like, bruh. So anyways, absolutely, it just grabs you and takes your soul, and it's like,
yeah, it's gonna chew you up. Yeah, and it starts right away. You know, it comes right at you. But yeah, there's, you know, hit records too. There's a ghost that lives in hit records. The records that you love when they're hits, there's something going on. There's a ghost, and that's the thing you always try to get. And you can't identify what that ghost is. You never can. You just know when it's there and when it's not. The only other thing I'll add with that in the production style and the things that I do when I'm writing or in the studio is that if I say this a lot now too, because I really like it. It's actually a Warren Buffett statement, which is interesting. I have to throw this out to you guys. So, we're talking about a billionaire, okay? But it applies to everything, right? So you really know if it's a hit or not. You know if it's a great song or not, right? If you do a track and somebody says, wow, that's great, not good enough. You do the track, they say, you know what? I've never heard anything like it. That's fucking amazing. Not good enough. But you know what it is? Oh, hell yeah. When it's an oh, hell yeah, undeniable. So now, if you're doing it and you record something, you listen back and you go, oh, hell yeah, that's a hit.
Let's go.
I'm telling you that when I did the Bob Left's podcast, he asked me, he said, do you really know when a song's a hit or not? Is there any song you recorded that you thought should be a hit that wasn't a hit? I go, no, every song I thought was going to be a hit was a hit. He goes, serious? I go, absolutely. You know what it is.
That's your superpower, the landscaper. Let's
No,
go.
it's
I
just
love it.
yeah,
I've never heard it put like that. That's crazy. That's a gem.
which
I
is
used to
weird.
say to people that if you're in the studio and you start laughing when you hear the playback, even if it's the most serious song in the world,
Yeah.
if you find yourself laughing, and the other way I've heard it put, which I love, and I say this to bands sometimes, is when you feel that there's a person in the studio who isn't actually there. It's like you have a band, and a band is 4 or 5 people. A production team is, say, 2 people and 2 or 3 musicians. All of a sudden, there's another person in the room, and you don't know who that person is. And they're sort of guiding things.
That's a ghost.
Yeah,
That's
exactly.
what it is. It's a spirit that's in the room. There's no question that happens. That's the gift that you want to receive, is that gift that the ghost to get in the room, into that song, into the track.
Well, that was fun. And next week, we're going to give you the other half of this discussion and interview. In that episode, we get a little philosophical, and me and Neil get to react to a super cool new band that neither of us have ever heard of before. Anyways, I hope you're enjoying the format. We got a lot of ideas of guests to get on here and join me and Tim. So tap in the comments and let me know what you guys are thinking. Anyways, like, share, comment, subscribe, and here's a tease of next week's episode.
Not one particular type style of music. And when I grew up, before I get to Steel Band Experience, when I grew up, I was playing clubs like the Viking Saloon. Let me give you a little idea where the Viking Saloon in Cleveland, Ohio, was like the pit, right? And the bands that played there were the Dead Boys and Rockin' from the Tombs and Perubu and My Lover's Lane Band and all these quirky, odd bands and all the top bands that played all through the country.